June 25th, 2025. Someone sits down at their computer in Arizona, opens Google, types 8 words, Nancy Guthrie, address Catalina Foothills, hits enter. That single search would become the first piece of evidence in an 8-month digital trail, a trail that would expose everything, a trail that would lead investigators directly to a name, a trail the suspect never knew they were creating because the internet never forgets. November 30th, the same person returns. Each music. This time they don't search for text. They search for images, pictures of the home, the property layout, music camera angles, entry points, visual reconnaissance. December 16th, a different search entirely. Savannah Guthrie salary. Someone is doing math, calculating ransom value, understanding what a Today Show co-anchor's family could afford to pay. January, music 11th. One final address search. 3 weeks before Nancy Guthrie disappeared. Final confirmation before moving from digital planning to physical surveillance. February 1st, 2026. Nancy Guthrie was taken from her home during a 41-minute operation that disabled cameras, left no fingerprints, and demonstrated knowledge that could only come from extensive preparation. Someone spent 244 days planning this, and every single one of those days is now documented in a digital trail they believed was anonymous. They were wrong. Nancy Ellen Guthrie is the 84-year-old mother of NBC Today music show. Co-anchor Savannah Guthrie. On February 1st, 2026, she disappeared from her Tucson home in what investigators now classify as one of the most methodically planned kidnappings they have encountered. Blood was discovered on her front porch. Her pacemaker was disconnected from monitoring systems at exactly 2:28 a.m. Security cameras were disabled in a precise sequence during a 41-minute operational window. For 19 days, this investigation pursued every conventional lead. DNA evidence from a black glove, found 2 miles from NY's home. Retail purchase tracking focused on the Ozark Trail backpack, visible in doorbell footage. Surveillance analysis of Ring camera recordings showing a masked individual conducting nighttime reconnaissance throughout late January. But on February 18th, 2026, everything changed. Fox News Digital broke a story that would transform this entire investigation. Google Trends. Data revealed 7 separate searches related to Nancy Guthrie and her daughter Savannah. Searches spanning 8 months, June 2025 through January 2026. Targeted searches, progressive reconnaissance, digital planning that began nearly a year before Nancy disappeared. Someone in Arizona, specifically in the Tucson area, had been researching NY's address, studying images of her home, calculating ransom value based on Savannah's salary, building an operational plan month by music month, phase by phase. This was not random violence. This was not crime of opportunity. This was systematic intelligence gathering by someone who understood physical operational security well enough to disable cameras and avoid leaving fingerprints. But who made one catastrophic mistake? They did not understand that Google tracks every search, timestamps it, geolocates it, music stores it permanently. Every search has an IP address attached, and every IP address leads to an internet service provider. Every ISP maintains subscriber records linking that IP to a name, an address, a person, and law enforcement can access all of that data through warrants. Music. The digital trail exists. It is permanent, and it leads directly to whoever spent 8 months planning Nancy Guthrie's disappearance. Before we examine exactly what these Google searches reveal about the planning cycle, why the January 11th date has investigators focusing on Ring camera footage, and how IP address tracking works to identify suspects. I need you to do something. Subscribe to this channel and turn on notifications. This is breaking news in Nancy Guthrie's case. The first major digital evidence showing premeditation, music motive, and a traceable connection to whoever orchestrated this. We are covering every development as it happens. And when that IP address leads to a name, when that warrant gets served, when that arrest happens, you will, music, want to be here. Subscribe now, because this investigation just shifted from stalled to accelerating. Fox News Digital reported that Google Trends data shows 7 separate searches related to Nancy Guthrie occurring between June 2025 and January 2026. These were not casual searches by random internet users curious about a celebrity's mother. The pattern is unmistakable. The progression is deliberate. In the intent, music is clear. Someone in Arizona, in the Tucson area where Nancy lives, was gathering intelligence, building a target package, planning an operation. The timeline reveals a methodology used by someone who approached this kidnapping the way military or law enforcement approaches a mission. Phase by music phase, each step building on the previous one. Intelligence gathering, visual reconnaissance, financial analysis, physical surveillance, execution, and June 21st, music, through 28th, 2025. The first documented search, Nancy Guthrie's address in the Catalina foothills. This search originated from Arizona according to Google Trends data. Not Nancy Guthrie as a general search. Not music Savannah Guthrie mother. Specific address, specific neighborhood, someone typing in search terms, music designed to locate one person in one location. 8 months before Nancy disappeared. 8 months is not impulse. 8 months is not spontaneous decision. 8 months is planning cycle. This search represents initial target selection. Someone identified Nancy Guthrie as a potential target and began researching where she lived. The specificity matters. They were not searching for Nancy Guthrie's biography or general information about Savannah Guthrie's family. They were searching for an address, physical location, geographic coordinates that demonstrates intent from day one. November 30th through December 1st. Music, 2025. SEAC Google image search for NY's address in Arizona. Fox News specifically notes this search was looking for images or a map of the home. 2 months before Nancy disappeared, someone was refining their approach, studying property layout, identifying camera locations if visible in online photos, understanding sight lines, music, planning entry points, and exit routes. Google image searches serve a fundamentally different purpose than text searches. Text search gives you an address. An image search shows you what the house actually looks like. Music, surrounding properties, street view images, architectural details, security features. This is visual reconnaissance. Someone was studying the target location remotely before ever driving past it physically. They wanted to see the property, understand the structure, identify vulnerabilities, map the music terrain. This level of preparation is not typical criminal behavior. This is not someone acting on impulse or opportunity. This is operational planning, conducted by someone with training or experience in surveillance and target analysis. December 13th through 20th, 2025. A completely different search. Savannah Guthrie salary. Searched from Tucson, not Phoenix, not Scottsdale. Tucson, music, the exact city where Nancy lives. This search reveals motive with absolute clarity. Financial reconnaissance. Someone wanted to know how much Savannah Guthrie earns to calculate a ransom demand. And to understand the family's financial capacity. To determine what price point would be high enough to matter, but realistic enough to be payable. Fox News compared this search to similar searches for other television anchors. Anderson Cooper's salary generated one search from the New York City area. Shan Hannity's salary generated one search from New York. But Savannah Guthrie's salary was searched from Tucson, the same city where her mother lives, in the same city where someone had been music searching for NY's address for the past 6 months. That geographic correlation is not coincidence. December is 6 weeks before Nancy disappeared. Motive research happening in the final preparation music phase. Multiple ransom notes were sent to media outlets after NY's disappearance, with reported demands around $6 million. Music law enforcement has not confirmed which, if any, were legitimate. But that amount aligns perfectly with someone who researched salary estimates for a Today Show co-anchor music and demanded what they believed the family could pay based on Savannah's annual earnings. Someone did the math. Someone calculated that the mother of a wealthy television anchor could generate a significant ransom payment. Someone made a cost-benefit analysis determining the operation was worth the risk. Music. This was not emotional crime. This was not crime of passion. And this was financial crime. Cold calculation return on investment analysis. January 11th, 2026. NY's address was searched again. This search matters because of its timing. Music. January 11th is exactly 3 weeks before Nancy disappeared. 3 weeks is final countdown timing. And this date has appeared elsewhere in the investigation in ways that reveal exactly what investigators' music believe happened. The Sheriff's Department specifically asked the public to check Ring camera footage from January 11th. Law enforcement knows something happened on January 11th. Something significant. Something that connects digital reconnaissance to physical surveillance. January 11th was a Saturday. This was the final confirmation search before the physical reconnaissance phase began. Music. Someone had researched the address in June, studied images in November and December, researched salary in December. Now in January, 3 weeks before execution, they searched the address one final time, confirming the location, verifying the intelligence, preparing to move from digital planning to physical surveillance. The sheriff's specific request for Ring camera footage from that date tells us what investigators believe. They believe the suspect drove past NY's home that day. Normal vehicle, daytime hours, no mask, no suspicious behavior. Just someone driving through the neighborhood, mostly slowing as they passed a specific address, perhaps taking photos from their vehicle, conducting what intelligence professionals call a drive-by reconnaissance. That vehicle could be captured on neighboring cameras. Investigators want to identify any vehicles that slowed near NY's address on January 11th. Because if footage shows the vehicle this person was music driving, that creates a connection. And digital reconnaissance on January 11th connects to physical drive-by. On January 11th connects to nighttime reconnaissance. Later in January connects to music, February 1st execution. Watch how investigators are building this case. They know from Google searches that the address was looked up on January 11th. They suspect a physical drive-by occurred the same day. If they can identify a vehicle from Ring cameras on January 11th, they can track that vehicle through every other evidence stream. Its license plate readers throughout Tucson photograph every vehicle that passes. Those readers create time-stamped records showing where vehicles traveled. If the suspect's vehicle passed a license plate reader on Wade Road near NY's neighborhood on January 11th, that data exists in police databases. Permanent record, time, date, location, music, direction of travel. Additionally, if a vehicle is identified from January 11th footage, or as investigators can check if the same vehicle appears in footage from the nighttime reconnaissance between January 20th and 29th. Multiple Ring cameras captured a masked individual during those dates, checking car doors, going through mailboxes, trespassing through yards, all between midnight and 2:00 a.m. Some of that footage captured parked vehicles in the background, even when the cameras were focused on the masked individual. Here is matching a daytime vehicle from January 11th to a nighttime vehicle from late January creates powerful connecting evidence. The Ring camera app message mentioning January 11th adds another critical dimension. Someone in NY's neighborhood posted something on Ring's Neighbors app related to that date. A sheriff's department captain replied asking users to look for verified music posts from the department when submitting tips. Either this suggests someone in NY's neighborhood noticed something suspicious on January 11th and posted about it publicly. That post likely described a vehicle, a person, or activity that seemed out of place. Investigators want other neighbors to check their footage from the same day to see if they captured the same suspicious activity from different angles. Multiple cameras, multiple perspectives, same vehicle, same time frame. That is how investigators build cases that cannot be defended against. The progression is absolutely clear now. June, initial target selection through address search. November and December, visual reconnaissance through image searches. December, financial reconnaissance through salary search. January, music 11th, physical site survey during daytime. January 20th through 29th, final reconnaissance during nighttime when Ring cameras captured the masked individual in NY's neighborhood. February 1st, execution. Between January 20th and January 29th, on multiple Ring cameras in New York's neighborhood, captured a masked individual checking car doors, going through mailboxes, trespassing through yards, all between midnight and 2 a.m. This is final physical reconnaissance, testing security response times, observing patrol patterns, confirming camera locations, understanding neighborhood activity during late-night hours, identifying which residents are alert and which are not. All of this leading to February 1st, when cameras were disabled in sequence and Nancy disappeared during a 41-minute operation that demonstrated intimate knowledge of the property, the security systems, and the timing windows required for success. Each phase provided information needed for the next phase. Address search identified the target location. Image searches showed property, music, layout. Salary search provided the motive framework and ransom calculation. Physical site survey on January 11th confirmed the intelligence gathered digitally. Nighttime reconnaissance tested security response and finalized the operational plan, then execution, demonstrating knowledge acquired through all previous reconnaissance phases. But here is what makes these Google searches absolutely devastating evidence. They are traceable. Music. Every Google search has an IP address attached. An Internet Protocol address identifying which device made the search and where that device was located when the search occurred. IP addresses work exactly like digital fingerprints. When you connect to the Internet, your Internet service provider assigns an IP address to your device. That IP address is logged, time-stamped, associated with your subscriber account. Google logs every search along with the timestamp, search terms, and IP address. This data is stored indefinitely, as law enforcement can obtain this data through warrants. And once they have that IP address, the rest is simple investigative work. Here is how IP address tracking works in criminal investigations. Law enforcement requests data from Google through a warrant. Google's legal compliance team pulls search logs associated with specific terms and time frames. In this case, searches for Nancy Guthrie address and Savannah Guthrie salary. Between June 2025 and January music 2026, those logs include every instance of those searches along with the IP addresses that made them. Law enforcement then takes those IP addresses to Internet service providers operating in Arizona, Cox Communications, Century Music Link, Comcast. Each ISP maintains detailed logs of which customer accounts were assigned, which IP addresses at which specific times. Music. These logs are required for billing purposes and network management. They exist permanently in ISP databases. Notice when law enforcement presents a warrant with an IP address, music, and timestamp, the ISP queries their database for that specific combination. The system returns the subscriber account that was assigned that IP at that precise moment. Music account information includes subscriber name, billing address, payment method, contact information, service activation date, everything needed to identify the physical person and location associated with that IP address. If all 7 Google searches came from the same IP address, that creates a direct, unbreakable link between the person who searched NY's address in June and the person who searched Savannah's salary in December. Same device, same location, same person conducting 8-month reconnaissance. That IP address leads to a physical address. That physical address has an occupant. That occupant becomes the prime suspect. Music. Even if searches came from different IP addresses, each one is traceable. Like if the suspect used home internet for some searches and a mobile phone for others, both IPs trace back to the same subscriber account. Mobile carriers like Verizon and AT&T maintain the same detailed logs as home internet providers. Cell tower data shows where that phone was located when searches occurred. If the suspect used public Wi-Fi at a coffee shop, that location has security cameras that captured them during the time the search occurred. Or even VPN services maintain connection logs that can be subpoenaed, showing which customer account connected at specific times. The fact that these searches occurred from Arizona and specifically from the Tucson area narrows the field dramatically. These were local searches by someone in the same geographic area as Nancy, someone who could drive to her home without raising suspicion, someone planning an operation that required physical presence, and not someone across the country with passing curiosity. Local actor operational planning extended timeline. And now we need to talk about who does this. Who spends 8 months planning a kidnapping? Music. What kind of person has the patience, the discipline, the operational mindset to execute reconnaissance over 244 days? Behavioral analysis expert John Kelly stated on Megyn Kelly's show that these searches represent exactly the type of pre-offense behavior expected in a planned abduction. Here, the pre-offense behavior includes this type of activity. And if anyone knows the person and their computer has those images locked in there somehow, or search history, that's a person we're going to talk to. And the tip line should be called. Law enforcement is publicizing these searches, hoping someone recognizes the pattern. Someone who knows a person who was obsessively researching Nancy Guthrie last year. Someone who noticed odd computer behavior. Strange questions about the Guthrie family. Which has unusual interest in Savannah Guthrie's wealth. That person needs to call the tip line, provide a name. Let investigators match that name against IP address data obtained from Google. Understanding the behavioral profile helps identify what investigators are looking for. Someone who spent 8 months on reconnaissance demonstrates extraordinary patience. Most criminals act impulsively or with minimal planning. An extended planning period indicates someone who can delay gratification, as maintain focus on a long-term goal, resist the impulse to act prematurely. This level of patience is relatively rare in criminal behavior. It suggests someone with discipline, music, self-control, ability to think strategically and long-term. This person shows highly organized thinking. The progression from address search to image search to salary search to physical reconnaissance follows a logical sequence. Each step builds on the previous one. Yours music. Each provides information needed for the next phase. This is not scattered random research. This is systematic intelligence gathering, following a deliberate operational plan. Someone created a checklist of information needed and worked through it methodically over 8 months. Financial motivation is crystal clear. The salary search reveals this was a calculated operation driven by the belief that Savannah Guthrie's wealth made Nancy a valuable target. Music, someone did the math. Someone calculated that the mother of a wealthy television anchor could generate a significant ransom payment. Someone made a cost-benefit analysis, determining the operation was worth the risk. This cold calculation shows someone thinking in terms of return on investment rather than emotional or impulsive motivation. Music local presence is confirmed. All searches originated from Arizona, with the salary search specifically from Tucson. This person lives or works in the area, and they have regular presence, allowing physical surveillance without drawing attention. Music. They can drive past NY's neighborhood without creating suspicion. They blend into the local environment. This is not an out-of-state actor flying in for an operation. This is a local resident with an established presence in the community. Someone who knows the area, understands local patterns, can move through neighborhoods without being noticed. And technical capability mixed with critical blind spots creates a fascinating profile. Music, sophisticated enough to plan a complex operation and disable cameras, not sophisticated enough to hide digital reconnaissance. This combination suggests a specific skill background. Perhaps military training providing operational tactics but lacking cybersecurity knowledge. Perhaps law enforcement experience teaching surveillance techniques but not understanding internet forensics. And perhaps self-taught through research but missing key elements about digital tracking. Music. Someone with military or law enforcement background would understand reconnaissance. They would know the importance of pre-operational planning. They would have training in surveillance, target selection, operational security for physical actions, but they might not have training in digital forensics, IP, address tracking, music, or internet privacy protection. This creates a specific vulnerability. I'm good at physical operational security, poor at digital operational security, and that vulnerability is about to destroy them. These characteristics create a profile investigators can work with. Who in the Tucson area has patience for extended planning? Who has organizational skills to execute a complex operation? Who has financial motivation to target a wealthy family? Who has local presence allowing repeated surveillance? Music. Who has operational capability but digital security blind spots? Cross-referencing this profile against other evidence narrows the field dramatically. Music. Who purchased an Ozark Trail backpack at Walmart in the relevant time frame? Who has facial hair matching doorbell footage? Who drives a vehicle captured on Ring cameras during nighttime reconnaissance? When the behavioral profile intersects with physical evidence and the digital trail, the number of potential suspects becomes very small and count possibly dozens from the entire Tucson population of over 500,000 people. And when that IP address identifies a specific name, the behavioral profile helps investigators confirm that person fits the expected characteristics. Former FBI agent Lou Will described this as an absolute treasure trove of evidence. This is the advanced reconnaissance. There's going to be reverse engineering against the IP address, which Google will be able to attribute to those searches to see any other history. Is your music any other IP associated data searches undertaken from 2025 right up until the date of the instance itself. This reverse engineering means investigators are examining the complete internet history associated with the IP addresses that made these searches. What else did that person search? Did they research how to disable Nest cameras? Did they search for information about pacemaker signals? Did they research Walmart locations selling Ozark Trail backpacks? Music. The scope of this digital. Music. The scope of this digital forensics is comprehensive. Browser history showing every website visited. YouTube videos watched showing interests and research topics. Reddit forums visited showing communities engaged with online purchases made from that IP address. Music. Downloads of files or software. Email activity if web-based email was used. Everything that device accessed through the internet becomes part of the investigation. This comprehensive digital forensics can reveal connections investigators would otherwise miss. The suspect may have researched other potential targets before selecting Nancy. Music. Those searches would appear in the history. They may have studied previous kidnapping cases to understand successful tactics. Those searches exist. They may have participated in online forums discussing crime planning or anti-surveillance techniques. Those posts can be found. They may have searched for information about wealthy television anchors before narrowing focus to Savannah Guthrie. They may have looked up other NBC anchors. Music. They may have researched celebrity home addresses in the Tucson area. All of this creates patterns showing not random interest, but a systematic target selection process. When they may have searched for how long someone can survive without medication. Music. They may have looked up prescription drug requirements for elderly patients. They may have researched remote locations suitable for holding someone. They may have studied cryptocurrency ransom techniques or how to create anonymous communication channels. Every one of these searches, if they exist in the history, becomes additional evidence of planning and intent. Browser history also reveals timing patterns. What hours was the person typically online? Music. Do late-night searches align with the nighttime reconnaissance captured on Ring cameras between midnight and 2:00? If someone was searching addresses and studying maps between midnight and 2 a.m., and Ring cameras captured a masked individual during the exact same hours, that temporal correlation strengthens the case exponentially. Device information matters too. Was the person using a computer or mobile phone for searches? If a mobile phone, cell tower data shows where that phone was physically located when searches occurred. If searches happened from Tucson and phone records show the device in Tucson at those precise times, that confirms local presence. If phone records show the device near NY's neighborhood on January 11th, when the address was searched, that connects digital reconnaissance to physical surveillance on the same day. Now watch what happens when evidence converges. Evidence convergence is where investigations gain unstoppable momentum. Google searches establish 8 months of planning. DNA from the glove establishes physical presence at the scene. Walmart purchases establish equipment acquisition. Ring cameras establish the reconnaissance pattern. When all streams converge on the same suspect identified through an IP address, conviction becomes virtually certain. Consider how this convergence works in practice. And the IP address from Google searches leads to a subscriber name. Investigators now have a name and address for the person who searched NY's address and Savannah's salary multiple times over 8 months. That name goes into a comprehensive background check, criminal history checked, employment verified, known associates identified, financial records examined. The next step is obtaining a warrant for credit card and bank statements. Like investigators, look for purchases consistent with planning and executing the operation. A Walmart transaction appears on the card dated December 15th, showing a purchase at a Tucson location. Music. The transaction amount and time match the purchase of an Ozark Trail backpack based on Walmart sales records. Another transaction at a sporting goods store dated Music, December 20th. Amount consistent with gun holster purchase based on store inventory records. Convergence, Music, point 1. Simultaneously, investigators obtain a warrant for complete internet history beyond just the Google searches. The ISP provides full browsing data, YouTube history shows videos watched about how to disable Nest cameras. Music Reddit posts show participation in discussions about avoiding detection and evading surveillance. Amazon purchase history shows books ordered about music surveillance and counter-surveillance techniques. All of this builds a picture of someone actively researching how to plan and execute an operation exactly like NY's abduction. Convergence Point 2. Ring camera footage from January 11th gets reviewed with specific focus on identifying vehicles. Footage shows a vehicle slowing near NY's address at 2:15 p.m. Music license plate partially visible. Enhanced image processing clarifies the plate number. Plate runs through the DMV database. A vehicle registered to the subscriber at the address matching IP address information. Convergence Point 3. The person who searched the address online drove past that address in person on the exact same day the search occurred. Ring camera footage from the nighttime reconnaissance between January 20th and 29th is reviewed again with new focus. Several clips show parked vehicles in the background, even when the camera is focused on the masked individual. One clip shows a vehicle parked 3 houses down from NY's residence at 1:30 a.m. on January 23rd. Same make model as the registered vehicle. Music Convergence Point 4. The vehicle registered to the person who searched the address is present during the final reconnaissance phase. DNA becomes the final convergence point. Investigators conduct surveillance. The individual stops at a coffee shop, orders coffee, sits outside, finishes the coffee, and discards the cup in a public trash can. An investigator retrieves the cup after the individual leaves. Cup sent to the lab for DNA analysis. DNA extracted from saliva residue on the cup rim. Profile compared against DNA from the glove found 2 miles from NY's home. Match confirmed. Convergence Point 5. The individual's DNA is on the glove at the crime scene. At this point, convergence is complete. Google searches prove 8 months of planning. Credit card purchases prove equipment acquisition. The vehicle registration proves physical presence during reconnaissance. DNA proves physical presence at the crime scene. Each element separately might be circumstantial. Together, they create an overwhelming case that admits absolutely no innocent explanation. A defense attorney faces an impossible task. How do you explain this to a jury? Your client searched the victim's address in June, studied images of the property in November, researched the victim's daughter's salary in December. Each drove past the victim's home on January, purchased a backpack and holster in December that match items seen in surveillance footage, drove past the victim's home on January 11th, had a vehicle present during nighttime reconnaissance in late January and left DNA at the crime scene on February 1st. What innocent explanation exists for that convergence of evidence? There is none. The Walmart tracking becomes especially relevant with the Google searches timeline now established. Music. The suspect needed a backpack and holster between December and January after visual reconnaissance determined how to carry equipment and conceal weapons. Walmart sales records show every Ozark Trail 25-liter backpack sold in Arizona during that period. Music transaction records provide date, time, store location, payment method. If purchase was made with a credit card, the transaction record has the cardholder name. If that name matches the IP address subscriber, convergence occurs immediately. If purchase was cash, surveillance footage shows music who bought it. Every Walmart checkout lane has security cameras positioned to capture customer faces directly. Even cash purchases create a visual record that music never disappears. Facial recognition software compares checkout footage to driver's license photos in state databases. If a match occurs with the person whose IP made Google searches, convergence is established beyond any doubt. New Sheriff Nano's confirmed investigators are canvassing gun shops throughout Tucson looking for the holster purchaser. Gun shops and sporting goods stores remember unusual combinations. Music customer with an expensive weapon wanting the cheapest possible holster. That interaction is memorable. Employees remember it. Music. When FBI agents show photos and ask about holster sales in December and January, music employees recall, transaction records get pulled, names emerge. If a name matches the IP address subscriber, another convergence point is confirmed. The ring visible through the glove and doorbell footage provides additional convergence opportunity. If the suspect identified through the IP address wears a distinctive ring, that detail becomes confirming evidence that connects digital identity to physical characteristics. Surveillance photos show a ring on the suspect's hand. Enhanced doorbell footage shows a ring visible through the glove. A physical match confirmed. The person identified through digital evidence matches physical characteristics captured in surveillance footage. But before we continue, I need to pause for a moment. If you have been following NY's case from the beginning, music, you know how many dead ends this investigation hit. DNA with no CODS match. 19 million profiles searched. 0 results. Ransom notes that led nowhere. Music days turning into weeks with no answers, no suspects identified. Youth music, no arrests made. But this Google Trends discovery changes everything. This is the break investigators needed. The evidence that transforms this case from cold leads to active prosecution. Subscribe and turn on notifications. Because when that IP address leads to a name, when that warrant gets served, when that arrest happens, you will want to be here. This channel will cover it the moment it breaks. Do not miss it. Hit subscribe now. For Savannah Guthrie and her family, these Google searches represent something beyond evidence. They represent a disturbing, deeply personal violation. Imagine discovering this while you were celebrating Christmas with your mother. Someone was calculating her ransom value based on your salary. While you were on air, smiling for millions of viewers, delivering news, conducting interviews. Someone was studying images of her home, planning how to take her. While you tucked your own children into bed, read them stories, kiss them goodnight. Someone was finalizing operational plans to take your mother from hers. 8 months, 244 days of being watched. 244 days where every moment of normally was an illusion because someone somewhere in your own city had already decided your mother's fate. Someone was watching planning. Someone researched Savannah's earnings and NY's address with calculated intent. The violation of privacy, the music, predatory surveillance, in the cold financial calculation behind the salary search, all create additional trauma that extends far beyond NY's disappearance itself. The search term was specific: Savannah Guthrie salary specifically, not Today Show salaries. Music, not NBC anchor earnings. Someone wanted information about her, specifically targeted her mother specifically because of her specifically. The parallel timelines are absolutely haunting. While the family lived normal lives between June and February, someone was planning. When Savannah appeared on the Today Show in July, someone had already identified Nancy as a target. When the family gathered for Thanksgiving, music, someone was studying images of NY's property. When they celebrated Christmas together, someone was calculating ransom demands based on Savannah's annual income. Discovering that someone spent 8 months researching your family before acting transforms your entire understanding of the crime. This was not random violence that could have happened to anyone. This was not a crime of opportunity where your mother was simply in the wrong place at the wrong time. This was targeted, calculated, deliberate. Your family was studied. Your mother was selected as the vulnerable point. Your financial status was researched to calculate ransom value. Your success was weaponized against the person you love most. Knowledge that 8 months of surveillance occurred while you lived normally creates a specific psychological burden that is difficult to articulate. How many times did you pass the suspect in a grocery store? How many times were you in the same restaurant, the same neighborhood, the same public space, never knowing this person was watching, planning, preparing? Professional success became a weapon used against her family. If someone concluded that a Today Show co-anchor earns enough money that her mother's safe return would be worth significant payment, someone reduced her music career achievement, her years of hard work, her professional accomplishments to a dollar figure for ransom calculation. Her visibility made her family a target. Her success created vulnerability for her mother. That causation, however unfair and unreasonable, creates a complex emotional response that extends music beyond grief. Guilt, even though no blame attaches to Savannah, anger at the injustice, fear for other family members, questioning whether the career that brought such fulfillment also brought this nightmare. For her siblings Annie and Cameron, the dynamic is equally complex. Their mother was targeted because of their sister's prominence, because Savannah achieved success that made the family appear wealthy. And the reality is that connection between Savannah's public success and NY's private vulnerability enabled music this targeting. That reality affects family dynamics in ways that will extend far beyond the immediate crisis. The Tucson connection matters emotionally in ways that compound the trauma. Searches came not from New York, where Savannah works, not from Los Angeles, where the entertainment industry concentrates, but from Tucson, where Nancy lives quietly. Music, where she has lived for decades, where she built a life and raised a family. Someone local researched the daughter's salary to calculate the mother's ransom value. Someone in NY's own community studied her vulnerability. Someone who shares the same city, possibly the same neighborhoods, possibly shops at the same stores, possibly crosses paths in daily life without ever being recognized. That local betrayal adds another layer to the trauma. Not a distant stranger from across the country, but someone who lives here. Someone who might be standing behind you in line at the grocery store. Someone who might wave from their car as they drive past. But these searches also represent something else. Hope Digital evidence is permanent. IP addresses create traceable connections that cannot be erased. Music. Google data provides timestamps and geographic locations that cannot be altered. The person who made these searches left a permanent record that will identify them. In law enforcement, publicizing these searches signals confidence. They would not reveal this evidence unless they believed it advanced the investigation meaningfully. Either they already have IP addresses and are seeking corroborating evidence through tips or music. They have identified a suspect and are building a comprehensive case before arrest. Public disclosure suggests the investigation has moved from stalled to active progress. To music. The decision to make this public through Fox News represents a calculated investigative strategy. Law enforcement could have kept Google search data confidential while quietly pursuing IP addresses through sealed warrants. Music instead, they chose public disclosure. This creates multiple strategic advantages. First, publicity generates tips. Someone who knows a person matching music, this pattern of behavior, may not have connected the dots before. A friend noticed odd computer activity last year but dismissed it. A coworker heard strange questions about the Guthrie family but thought nothing of it. A family member saw suspicious internet searches but made excuses. Now those memories get triggered. Those observations suddenly have context. Those people call the tip line music, providing names that investigators cross-reference against IP addresses obtained from Google. Second, publicity creates psychological pressure on the suspect. And the person who made these searches, music, believed their digital reconnaissance was private and untraceable. They took extensive precautions at the crime scene, wore masks and gloves, disabled cameras, avoided leaving fingerprints. They feel confident their physical operational security was solid. Now they discover their 8 months of digital planning is exposed publicly on national news. That realization creates enormous stress, and stress leads to mistakes. A suspect under psychological pressure may attempt to delete search history from their devices, but that deletion itself becomes evidence. Computer forensics can recover deleted files from hard drives even after deletion. Evidence of deletion demonstrates consciousness of guilt. Why delete searches unless you know they are incriminating? Music. That deletion proves the suspect's awareness of the connection between their searches and NY's disappearance. The suspect may contact accomplices to warn them that investigations have advanced. Those communications create additional evidence. Music, phone records, text messages, encrypted messaging apps that investigators can access with warrants. Every contact made after Google searches become public potentially links additional people to the conspiracy. The suspect may flee, but fleeing is its own evidence and creates significant operational challenges. Fleeing actually narrows music. Fleeing actually narrows investigative focus. Investigators can tell the FBI and U.S. Marshals that the primary suspect has fled. Resources focus on a single target rather than multiple possibilities. Border Patrol gets alert. TSA gets notification. Credit card activity gets monitored. Music, phone location gets tracked. Fleeing often leads to quicker capture than staying put and maintaining normal routines. Third, publicity warns potential accomplices that the investigation has advanced significantly. If multiple people were involved in planning or executing this operation, Seeing Google searches exposed publicly might motivate one to cooperate before the others do. The $200,000 reward becomes more attractive when you know investigators are closing in anyway. Better to cooperate now, claim the reward, and potentially secure a better plea deal than wait to be identified through associate connections. The first person to provide information gets the reward and potentially the most favorable treatment. That creates a race among accomplices to contact authorities first. And in that race, someone always breaks. The investigation timeline just accelerated dramatically. Music. Yesterday, this case seemed stalled. DNA from the glove did not match CODIS. Music 19 million profiles searched. 0 results. Genetic genealogy would take weeks or months. No suspects publicly identified, no arrests made, days turning into weeks. Today, everything music changed. A completely different evidence stream exploded into public view. 8 months of Google searches, traceable IP addresses, names possible within days, not weeks or months. For the 400 investigators working this case around the clock, Google searches represent immediately actionable leads. Music contact, Google legal compliance, and obtain IP addresses through warrant. Contact ISPs operating in Arizona. Obtain subscriber names through music warrant. Run comprehensive background checks. Execute search warrants for homes, vehicles, computers. Collect DNA samples for comparison. Build the case systematically. All achievable within days or weeks. For Nancy, music Guthrie, wherever she is on day 19, this development means renewed hope. The investigation that appeared stalled is accelerating. Music. Someone planned for 8 months, but left a digital trail that leads directly back to them. For the suspect, this revelation means the walls are closing. They planned carefully, researched thoroughly, executed methodically, took precautions at the physical crime scene, wore protective equipment, disabled cameras, avoided leaving fingerprints. But they forgot one critical thing. The internet remembers everything. They believed reconnaissance was anonymous. They were catastrophically wrong. Like law enforcement now has a complete roadmap of their planning created by their own searches. Every step documented, every phase time-stamped. Music, every search geolocated. A courtroom prosecutor will present this timeline to a jury. June, address search showing initial target selection. November, image search showing visual reconnaissance of the property. December, salary search showing financial motive and ransom calculation. January, your final address search, before physical reconnaissance began. February, Nancy disappears during a precisely timed 41-minute operation. 8 months displayed on a screen for 12 jurors to see. 8 months proving premeditation at the highest level. 8 months demonstrating this was not impulse, not accident, not misunderstanding. A defense attorney will struggle desperately to explain. Why did your client search NY's address in June? Why search for images of the property in November? Why search Savannah's salary in December? Why search the address again in January when all searches come from the same IP address registered to your client? When the timeline aligns perfectly with Ring camera reconnaissance? When physical evidence places your client at the scene? What innocent explanation exists? There is none. A jury will see the progression with absolute clarity. 8 months of documented planning, not a crime of passion, It not a spontaneous act driven by emotion or temporary insanity. Music, a methodical, calculated operation that began with selecting a target and ended with taking an 84-year-old woman from her home. 8 months is a long time. Long enough to change your mind hundreds of times, long enough to consider consequences, long enough to choose a different path, long enough to stop. The suspect had 244 days to decide not to do this. 244 opportunities to walk away. They proceeded anyway. And that choice matters enormously in sentencing. Federal kidnapping carries mandatory minimum sentences. Premeditation does not mitigate. Music, it aggravates. 8 months of planning demonstrates the highest possible level of criminal intent. Music 8 months also provides countless opportunities for mistakes. Mentioning plans to a friend who now recognizes the pattern. Leaving a computer unlocked where a family member saw search history. Acting nervous or distracted during the planning phase. Your music making unusual purchases that co-workers noticed. All these potential witnesses exist throughout Tucson. All these memories can be triggered by publicity. All these observations can be reported. Music. All these tips can flow to law enforcement. Someone knows who made these searches. Music. Someone shares a home or office with the person whose computer conducted this reconnaissance. Someone noticed an obsessive interest in Savannah Guthrie last year. Someone saw suspicious searches on a shared computer. Someone heard strange questions about the Guthrie family. Music. That person can call the tip line right now. That person can provide a name. That name gets checked against IP addresses obtained from Google. When a match occurs, when that name appears in both the tip line database and the IP address records, music, the case advances rapidly, from identification to warrant execution to arrest.
Dear Music. The person who searched NY's address on June 25th, 2025 is going to be arrested. Google has their IP address stored permanently in server logs. ISPs have their subscriber name linked to that IP address. Law enforcement is coming with warrants. It is not a question of if. It is a question of when. 8 months of planning, documented in searches that the suspect created themselves. Believing they were conducting anonymous research, they were actually building their own prosecution timeline.
Acted in every search, every click, every image viewed, all permanently recorded, all time-stamped, all geolocated, all leading investigators directly to their identity. Nancy Guthrie has been missing for 19 days. Her family has been searching desperately for 19 days. But someone spent 244 days planning this. June 25th through February 1st. 244 days of research, 244 days of reconnaissance, 244 days of evidence creation. And now all 244 days are being examined by law enforcement with full access to Google's server logs, ISP subscriber records, and legal authority to execute warrants for every piece of digital evidence that exists. The person responsible left 2 types of evidence: physical evidence at the scene, digital evidence online, music. Physical evidence can be hidden, cleaned, disposed of, destroyed. Digital evidence is permanent, cannot be deleted from Google's servers. Lights music cannot be erased from ISP logs, cannot be removed from permanent records that law enforcement can access through warrants, cannot be destroyed, cannot disappear. The digital evidence is what will identify the suspect. Music. That identification will lead to warrant execution. That warrant will lead to arrest. That arrest will lead to prosecution. And that prosecution will lead to conviction and justice. For Nancy Guthrie, for her family, for Savannah, Annie, and Cameron, who have endured 19 days of unimaginable anguish, for the 400 investigators working this case around the clock, for the nearly 40,000 people who have submitted tips, believing Nancy deserves to come home. These Google searches represent the turning point. Yesterday, this investigation appeared stalled. Today, it accelerated. Tomorrow, it leads to identification. Soon after, arrest, then prosecution, then justice. Each justice for an 84-year-old woman who spent 8 months being surveilled by a predator she never knew was watching. Justice for a family who endured the same 8 months of unknowing surveillance while living normal lives, never suspecting the danger growing closer. Justice delivered through evidence that the suspect created themselves. Evidence they believed was private research. Evidence that was actually creating a permanent, traceable, music, undeniable record of criminal planning, in a record that now leads law enforcement directly to their door. Music. The internet never forgets, and neither will we. If this case has affected you, if you believe Nancy Guthrie deserves justice, if you want to see this investigation reach its conclusion, subscribe to this channel now. Turn on notifications, music, because when that IP address is traced, when that name is identified, when that arrest is made, music, we will bring you every detail as it happens. This is not over. And this is just music beginning. And for the person who made those searches, who spent 8 months planning, who believed they were untraceable, the message is clear. Your digital trail exists. Your IP address is logged. Music. Your name is in those records, and law enforcement is